Greetings, fellow quitters, and welcome back to the CMDQ podcast. We're your hosts. I'm Murray Casey.
I'm John Pelfrey.
Throughout our summer scaling series, we've talked quite a bit about adding subcontractors to your team and how they can help you grow beyond your capacity as a one-person business. So we've spent some time exploring the operational side of subcontracting, but of course, when it comes to humans, it's never quite that simple.
Today, we're pulling in Sara Kauten, veteran, uncompany freelancer, and owner of Luna Mae Creative, for a discussion on the interpersonal side of subcontracting. We're going to be taking a walk down memory lane and reliving some of our own learning experiences in the hopes that our listeners may be able to skip some of the hard lessons. So let's get started. All right, Sara, we've got a warm-up question for you. In our last episode, we talked about the importance of independent contractor agreements. Have you been buttoned up from the very beginning when you've hired other subs? Or did you have informal agreements, or did it evolve over time for you?
I believe the very first project I took on when I quit my agency job, it was a big website project. And I had a developer that I used to work with at the agency help me. And I don't even think I had a contract. Looking back, it was like 6 years ago and everything went well with the project. But looking back, I cannot believe I didn't have a contract, because now I understand the importance of that. I was always very focused on the contracts for the client. But then over the years, I've realized the importance that you need to have a contract with your subcontractors as well to talk about payment, timeline, all those important things.
Yeah, absolutely. So how did you know it was time for you to start working with subs? You said that you got started like sort of your first job with a developer. And then as you started to do some other work and things, like what's your thought process for bringing in other people from the outside?
So with the developer, that was easy for me because it was rooted in something I don't want to do. So when it comes to custom website development, I love the strategy, the UX, the design. I don't want to have anything to do with a domain issue or a hosting issue or developing. And so for me, it's just so easy to see a project like a website rebuild and just being able to hire a developer. My issue was most of my work now is social media marketing. So I'm such a perfectionist with every single piece that goes into social media marketing. And I've been doing it for about 6 years. And I'm finally now hiring my first social media assistant in August. So I'm really excited. But it took me years to get to that point. And really what got me to that point was burnout. I was so out. And I feel like I was in this analysis paralysis where I felt like everything had to be perfect before I could onboard somebody. And I had to have all my ducks in a row. And really, I think I just needed to rip the Band-Aid off because your working relationship can evolve over time. So we're just going to start small. She'll be helping me with my agency, social media, and hopefully will help me grow as I grow, because I have clients in the pipeline I can't even bring on right now because I'm so busy. Yeah, burnout, huge. That was a wake-up call.
Well, and I think for you too, it's like, we've worked together for a while now, and I recognize I'm not going to say it's perfectionism. You just have a really high level of craft and you care a lot about the work that you deliver. And it's scary to hand that over to people outside of your space and to trust them that they're going to do it, because they are not going to deliver it exactly like you, because they're different people. And that's like a big jump. But, you highlighted a really important thing. And I think when people are starting to scale their business, they want to stay independent for their whole career. They have to get past that burnout hurdle. And it's either like, I'm going to choose to be burned out, or I am going to have to turn work away. And as a business, if you want to grow a business, you have to figure out how to get past that hurdle/plateau. Otherwise, you're just going to kind of keep repeating the same stuff and you're never going to get to grow, like income wise or time wise. You're just going to get kind of stuck. So I think that's like a good thing to highlight.
And I do think I was stuck. Like, I know I can't have more than 6 or 7 clients at a time. And I've had that consistently for years. But then I was like, okay, well, now I'm just burnt out. Like, I just need to figure out how I can bring someone on and slowly scale. And maybe I'll be able to give them more hours as I grow.
So how do you think the best subcontractor relationships start? Like for instance, this person that you're bringing on, how did you meet them, find them, decide that they were a good person to work with, all that? How does that start for you?
Actually, I have a horror story if you guys want to hear what. So
yes.
going to go back a little bit. I'll talk about the girl I'm hiring, but as far as developers, I had a bunch of website projects this year, and I haven't done them in a couple of years. And the original developer, subcontractor I always used, raised his prices. And I made a mistake of quoting the project before I got his quote because I always just assumed that his price would be the same, but it was way more. It was like outside of the budget. So I panicked and I posted in a Facebook business group. And that was awful because I don't know how people found my information. They were calling me, texting me nonstop, emailing me. I was like being bombarded, and then it was so overwhelming. And then I remembered I just talked to one of my old colleagues. She's still one of my good friends. And she was like, you should just use Lyle, another person I used to work with at this agency. So I reached out to him. So I think the best thing is referrals and just really thinking about who you know in your network and just starting there, asking them if they know anybody. The cold pitch on Facebook group did not go well for me. And then my social media assistant I'm hiring in August. This was very different because she's just a go-getter and she lives in Detroit. And I think she noticed. So I was doing social media for a coffee shop in Detroit and she lived right around the corner. So she was working at agencies and social media. And so she was very aware of the work I was doing. And once she found out it was me that was running it, she reached out to me a couple of times on Instagram. I think we exchanged phone numbers because we were going to get coffee and just chat. And then every couple months she would text me and be like, hey, I quit my agency job. I'm going to be freelancing. If you need any help, just let me know. And there was a few times she reached out where I lost a few clients and I was like, I just don't think this is the right time. And then she reached out again in the spring of this year and I kind of put it off. And then I was like, you know what? I need to just do this. And so I just really forced to come up with a scope of work that makes sense for me. And I told her this was a draft. We just had a Zoom call yesterday and she's really excited and she has really good energy. She's younger. So I value her perspective too with social media trends. And she's just really connected to the city that I live in. So I was really impressed by her energy. And yeah, so I'm excited. I was a little nervous because I was like, I feel like I don't really know her. So that's why we had a Zoom call and she heard her background and what she's looking to do and who she works with right now. And she works with a lot of really great other creatives in this city that I know of. So that was impressive. So yeah, I feel good.
I think it's great to meet somebody or virtually meet them or have conversations because you learn so much. It's especially when you're handing off the work that you would otherwise be doing, there's a personal connection there. I think a lot of times when we're working with subcontractors, especially for the first time, we tend to go too hardcore business. Can I deliver it? Yes, have they done it? But it's also just do I want to work with them? Do I want to have a coffee with them? Do I want to be able to work through hard conversations? It's very much like a relationship. And it's yes, you might make sense. It might make sense on paper, but if they can't carry on a conversation or they can't be excited with you, then it's it's maybe not fun to work with them, even if they can deliver. And I think that's a really good thing to highlight, that having a coffee, having a conversation, or at least getting on a Zoom face-to-face, virtual face-to-face call, you'll learn a lot about a person's personality and if that's going to be a good fit. Because, it's if they're not a good fit personality-wise and you get into a conflict conversation or something, it makes it a little bit harder to navigate if you're not kind of coming at it from the same wavelength.
Yeah, for sure. I definitely think personality and making sure you vibe with the person helps a lot. It's just as important as their skill, but I think it does help when they're excited and they have really good energy.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. And also, I thought it was interesting you said that you knew other people that she'd worked with. That really helps as well, because then you can talk to those other people, or if you know them or if you worked with them in the past, then you have a pretty good judge of okay, well, I know that she's worked with this person and this person. And that sort of social validation really, really helps. And you can always, sort of check references or just, hey, how did it go when you worked a project with this person or whatever? Those types of things help too. But I mean, just with us, with Uncompany, so many of our freelancers have come from referrals from other freelancers. That's a lot of our connections. And it tends to be a lot of the people that we use over and over again are people that either we knew directly or indirectly through another freelancer. And that sort of validation of, oh yeah, I worked with Sara and she was great. That's enough to go, oh, okay, well then I can trust her too, right? And if you can check out their work and see it online, even better. But yeah, this business is all about relationships, honestly. Like,
And even just working projects with one company, Mari, you're like, well, this person knows this person, and that it's just the web is wild.
yeah,
That's what we say. Like, don't make anybody too mad.
right. No, never burn a bridge. No.
Never burn a bridge.
Yeah. But like the 6 degrees of Kevin Bacon sort of thing is like, it's so true in any industry or whatever, but it is funny how far it reaches in the sort of like creative services business. Like I remember once Mari got a call from a client. We were sitting in the office. She got a call from a client and they needed like a video production team in Seattle the next day. And I was like, there's no way you can do this. And she did. She just said, well, I know this person. And then they probably know somebody else over here. And then like within an hour or two, she had a crew lined up that people, and got something working. And it's like, that is the power of a network,
It's true. That's a challenge.
We always know somebody.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
That was a wild day. I was like, I can't believe you did that.
I love a challenge.
Yeah. So do you have you thought about like contingency plans? I think you learned a really good lesson already about I was depending on a person and then they raised their rates and then I posted on Facebook and maybe Facebook groups is not the place for the contingency plan. So since you had that learning, like what do you think about now when it comes to contingency plans in case somebody doesn't work out?
I think that's where your network really does come in, asking around, asking for referrals, and just trying to talk to more people. If you do need to pull somebody else in, even this kind of is bringing up something different, but timelines are so important because I'm working on another website with the same developer and his wife is having a baby August 18th. So I had to text him multiple times and I was like, okay, does this timeline work? Because he basically said that the whole website needs to be live before like August 12th. Just to be safe. And so if I didn't pay attention to a timeline, I could have potentially been burned. So I think timeline and just making sure the scope of work and timelines are buttoned up is really important.
Sure. But then like the project manager in me goes, what happens if the baby's born 2 weeks early?
I freaking Sara out.
Sorry.
I have thought about that. And so I think that was a level of risk I am taking with this one, but I believe in being resourceful and being able to find somebody else who might be able to come in and help if he has to completely go MI.
Yeah.
I also think working with people you've worked with in the past, like there's just a level of trust there. I know how he works and I don't think he would ever just leave me hanging. So being able to trust somebody with that is nice too. And maybe I haven't been burned bad enough yet. So maybe in a couple of years, I'll have a crazier story. But
I think it's like, I think the scariest part of starting to work with subs is the beginning is like, when you don't have your subs that you have that trust yet. You might have people, you might have friends that that you work just alongside of, but you haven't put like, here, and I trust you to take this on yet. And so sometimes that can be a little sticky because like they might be great friends, they might be good colleagues, but maybe they're not great to work with. And you have to kind of get past that testing period. And then once you have tested it and it's like, okay, these are my 5 people, then you have that pool, just like we do as Company Works. We have a pool of people that we're like, okay, if something happens, somebody needs to go out, a designer needs to go out. We know we have these other people who are great and can fill in. But it's like until you have that bench of people, it's a little scary. And then especially if you start to add, whenever you are testing somebody new, you go through that same process of just like, I hope this works out. Yes, it did. No, it didn't. Here's what's different. But it's a kind of once you get past that, like you get past that hump of not having anybody, then you're like, okay, well, I have a little bit of space, I can breathe a little bit more. But in the beginning, it is a lot of just testing and trusting. And I think, one of the things we talk a lot about too is like when you're starting to work with subcontractors, like don't give them your golden clients. Don't give them like the massive project. Give them something small. So if it's sales, like you can either pick it up, or you can recover from it without like losing everything. And I think that's part of it. It's like little snacks, like test them on little snack projects and then start to give them bigger projects. And it gives you that kind of, it covers you for all those things that might come up that you just don't know about until they happen.
yeah, exactly.
So, how do you think about helping your subs understand the assignment? Let's say you bring on somebody new and you've been working with a client for a long time and you like understand the assignment from the moment that you get it. If you're working with Uncompany, let's say, you kind of know the drill and you know what the assignment is already, right? So let's
We
say
do
you
such
were
a good job briefing.
yeah, right. But you also you're used to working with us. But if you brought in a sub to work with us, you have to communicate. Okay, this is Uncompany. This is how they work. These are their expectations. This is their social media, calendar and their whatever. How do you think about transitioning that information over to somebody else?
Yeah, for sure. I think having check-ins. So I actually learned this from Mari. Just having those briefings and just making sure you're having consistent calls where you can just be in alignment on what deadlines are coming up as far as tone of voice, brand items. I use a lot of different platforms. Canva's great for design because you can create specific brand buckets and you can fill in the color palette, all the logos, the photos. You can even put a brand voice in there. And a lot of the scheduling apps I use that have AI now, we can put in brand personas for each brand. So making sure that's all up there and tightened up, I think helps too. But I think a lot of it will be learning, especially with the social media assistant I'm hiring, because I feel like this is also new to me. So I'm excited. But I think having regular check-ins, an agreed scope of work that's very detailed, and then just making sure all of the brand assets are organized digitally somehow.
Yeah, and you have a system for that that's consistent so that if you need to put that sub on other clients as well, then they're looking at kind of the same thing, the same template for the next one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I do feel like you'll have really good success with that because you are so organized in general. Like feel like you're very organized and very buttoned up. And it's like when you're working with subs, a lot of times where you lose money is that like project management startup piece where you're just like files are here and everything's flat and that, it's that chaos. And if you can like organize that from the beginning where it's consistent, you're like, you just send them the folder every time, then you're making more money because you're spending less time as a manager and you're spending more time just handing the project over. So I think you'll have quite a lot of success with that because you already do that really well.
Thank you. Yeah, I think it's always a progress, but I do agree being organized is very important.
Mm-hmm.
What have you learned about like the delivering feedback and criticism to subcontractors? Like you get information back from the client, maybe the sub's on that call or maybe they're not. How do you handle that providing feedback so that you can, get the information back, but not, I mean, you're a nice person. You're not trying to hurt anybody's feelings or anything like that. But at the same time, the job has to get done. So do you have any best practices about that?
Yeah, I would make sure you have revision limits in the scope of work or the contract you have with your subcontractor, and just being very upfront with your communication. Okay, we're having a meeting next week. This is what we're covering. If there's any edits, we're going to need those edits by this day to keep the project moving forward. And I'm dealing with that actually right now. I'm working on a website and it's in a staging environment and there's all sorts of spacing and like design issues that I've noticed. So I just sent him an email today and I said, I noticed some things. I'll send you a list by the end of the week. And he was like, oh, great. No problem. I'll get that done this weekend. So yeah, I think communication and just being upfront with as much information as you can is really important, just to make sure everybody knows what they're supposed to be doing through every phase of the project. I know with your project manager lens, you can probably empathize with that.
Oh yeah, for sure. I think, getting as much up front as you can is really, really helpful. I think the other thing that we've learned over the years with Uncompany is that the more the person doing the work can hear from the person who is providing the feedback directly, the easier it is. And so, back in the old school agency world, you'd have an account manager that would talk to the client. The account manager would come back from the client meeting, give the information to the project manager, who would give the information to the creative director, who would give the information to the designer doing the work, right? And it was like, time you played the telephone game, one, it took like 3 days.
Yeah.
And two, the information was completely messed up. And if we'd have just had the designer on the phone with the client,
Yeah.
everything would have been 15 minutes. And
Yeah.
so that things that we've learned, and that's why we structure things the way we do with our company. We want the freelancer to be working directly with the client because that's the fastest, cheapest, and easiest way to get things done.
Yeah. That's smart.
Yeah, it was such a mess back then. Like, and at the big
Yeah.
agencies, and I guess some agencies still run like this, but at the bigger agencies,
yeah.
like it's just a giant, like I don't know, it's just a telephone game constantly played.
But I
up
think
and down.
I feel so much better about how creatives are working with creatives now, because I think all account and project managers are saints. And after doing this business, I immediately apologize to all of our project managers who have ever had to work with me in the past. But there is a language difference too, where it's like you, Sarah, you understand how to speak design, you understand how to translate what the client's saying. Like you're saying this, client, but I know what you're talking about is this, and I know how to give that feedback. And that's why I think, when creatives can successfully work with other subcontracting creatives, then that feedback is really clear because they speak the same language versus like it coming from a client to an account manager who maybe doesn't know creative language as much, and then they translate it in their version down to the creative. And I do feel like that's why, again, obviously we're pro freelance, but freelancing seems to work so much more efficiently is because the people who are doing it are talking about it quickly, which is really helpful.
Amen.
Yeah.
For sure.
So get the subs on the call if you can, and if you can't, then you're right. Like upfront as much as possible, and then give the information to them as transparently as possible, as like without any filter.
Well, now you can record everything, which is so amazing. It's just like you can watch it.
Right.
Yeah.
That's right. Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely. That's a good point too. You could record the meetings,
I just send
transcripts, automatic meeting notes, all that good stuff. It all helps.
I don't know what we did for all of it.
It was harder.
It was taking
harder and
notes.
slow.
Pay attention.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, it was just so slow, so difficult. All right. So is it hard to let someone do something in a way that isn't exactly the way that you would do it? This is a big one, I think.
Yes, and very, especially if you're a perfectionist. This is something I think I struggled with for years. And I just need to let people have the freedom to just run with it, but also make sure I just can get a final set of eyes on it before it goes live or goes to the client. And that's how I calm my anxiety over it. But that has been one of the biggest hurdles for me, is letting go. I'm going on 6 years, but I think that's what's taken me the longest to let go of trusting them that they're the expert in what they do. And if you need to make any edits to it, you always can.
Yeah.
How has your perception changed over the years then, over 6 years when it comes to that? What was it like at first? What was your mentality at first? And then what is it now?
My mentality first was that I couldn't trust anybody. And the level of service that I want to deliver, I have to do it. And that led to a lot of burnout. And just really realizing that you can trust other people in your industry. And there are people that are really good at what they do, and just letting them have that freedom to just use their expertise and their skills. And if you need to look at something before it goes live, and always just look at it and make edits. But yeah, I think in the beginning, I was just like, nobody can do this. I have to do everything, which is back. It's crazy that I used to think that. I'm much more
but
open.
it's pretty, it makes sense, especially when you deliver high quality work like you do and you care about what you do, you're going to hold that close. And I think that's just kind of like why you're so good at what you do. But it's like, if you can't get past that, it's a barrier for you to grow and be able to take a vacation and do that kind of stuff, which is one of the main reasons why we work for ourselves, right? Is to have that flexibility over our time. So it's like, it's a hard thing to give. I think that's probably the number one. Trust and letting go is probably the number one thing that holds people back from hiring subs, because it's always that fear of what if they deliver something wrong and then I have to redo it anyway. And it's that kind of stuff. And it's, if you can get past that and then find your key people that you trust to do it, then that's the big step to get past.
Yeah. And to add on to that too, as the project manager again in the room, put into the timeline some time for that feedback at the end before it goes to the client. if you're looking at it the night before it's supposed to be finalized for the client, that's a little late to provide the feedback. And then that creates a really bad like downstream effect. So when you're building out your timeline, budgets too, same thing, build in some cushion and some margin on the budget side. But on the timeline side, if you're going to be providing feedback, ask for the deliverable from your sub a few days before it's due to the client. Therefore, then there's time for you to provide feedback, for them to get the work done, and then for it to come back. That's another thing that I've always noticed. Sometimes people see a deadline to the client as the only like check-in point or the only milestone. And really, when you're working with subs, you got to add another milestone in before.
Like an internal check-in.
Yeah, absolutely. Internal check-in's a good way to look at it. All right. So how has working with subs benefited your business? Like, what are we've talked about some of the difficulties. So what are some of the benefits?
I think the benefits are being able to delegate things that you don't like to do. And it's kind of rewarding being able to be like, oh, I have this work. I don't want to work on this. Do you want to work on this? And you can just pass different opportunities on to other people. I feel like, what's that saying? You have to spend money to make money. And then I don't know if this would be considered a subcontractor, but I hired a sales coach one year, which was a referral from one of my cousins who has an interior design business. And that was my first big expense that I had monthly on retainer. And I remember I was so scared, but everything I learned, I'll have for the rest of my life. And I feel like it's so much easier for me to close sales now when I'm in the sales stage meeting with clients. So I think just that knowledge gained was amazing. I know that's more like coaching than a subcontractor, but I find it valuable.
Yeah, it's great.
Yeah, you got to invest in your business. It's cool. Since this is slightly off topic, but I did want to know, since you mentioned that, what is one takeaway from hiring the sales coach that helps you to close things better? Because I'm sure people listening would want to know that.
I think I have two things. Always present a proposal in person or on a Zoom call. I used to email them. It's just easier to close sale. You can ask questions, and it's just easier to lock them in when you have them on the call. And then I always try to include some sort of deal. So say if somebody is hiring me for social media, but they're on the fence about hiring me for a new website, I say, well, let's do a preferred partner bundle. If you hire me for both of these, I'll give you a free content shoot. So I try to like bake in something that sounds like they're getting, but I'm still making sure all my bases are covered, which is maybe more a psychology thing, but
that's great. I love that.
Yeah. That's. I mean, they do that at the grocery store all the time to get you to buy more stuff, right?
I know.
2 for 1.
I don't know. It works though.
It does. Well, I also think it's like the more that you can get buy-in on other future stuff too. So it's like not in your website, which means you're going to need me to do ongoing stuff, which means that, it's like, you're kind of like, you're doing what's needed and then you're kind of setting the table for yourself in the future as long as everything goes smooth. So it's smart to like tee up future work, because then they get really embedded with you. And then it's like, well, I'm just going to keep working with Sarah because we've already done all this work and she knows my stuff. And so it's a smart process because you're kind of laying the groundwork for the future.
One of my longest clients I'm going on 2 years with them. And I just talked to him today. I was at his office and I said, I do 12-month contracts for social media, but he's been having me do all sorts of signage and stickers, like stuff that any creative agency would do. And so I feel like he's kind of like locked into me because I'm just his go-to person now. He'll just Slack me. And he ended up saying he just wants to do an ongoing contract. So that's exciting. I don't know. There's so many different ways to set up contracts. So I know everyone has their own opinions, but I don't know.
Yeah.
I thought that was exciting because I feel like he's
awesome.
very, and he is happy with everything.
And it sounds like a good future way to bring in a subcontractor, because you're like, some of these smaller projects like stickers and things like that, I can bring in a junior designer. I can oversee, and then we can add more stuff. So you're kind of like starting to build a little mini agency.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yes, that was my plan all along.
Good job.
All right. So lightning round here. These are just 3 quick questions. Whatever comes to your mind. Is there anything that you'd never subcontract out?
Client communication.
All right.
Mhm.
Good.
That's a good one.
When a subcontractor relationship isn't working out, do you cut it off early or do you try to make it work until the end of the project?
I try to make it work to the end of the project and just lesson learned for the
Mhm.
future.
Hopefully it's not a long project.
Right. I guess that would play into it, right? If it was like a year-long project, that'd be different than a couple weeks.
That's true.
Yeah. All right. Last one. What's the number one thing you need clarity on before the work begins?
The scope of work.
Yeah. So within that scope of work, what's the number one thing? Timeline, budget, deliverables, audience.
Yeah. Timeline and deliverables are equal to
Mhm.
me.
Yeah.
Awesome. Thanks so much for joining us today, Sarah. If our listeners are in need of your services or, would like some help with social media or graphic design work in general, how can they find you?
You can find me at lunamaecreative.com or on Instagram, LinkedIn, all the socials, Luna Mae Creative.
Cool. And that is May spelled MAE. So LUNAMAE creative.com. I had to read it a couple times to remember myself. Awesome. Well, this has been a great conversation. We've really enjoyed it. Thanks for sharing your experiences with subcontractors with us. Yeah. And so until next time, I'm John.
And I'm Mari.
And we're reminding you that quitters can win and winners can quit. This podcast is for informational purposes only and does not constitute medical, legal, or financial advice. The views, thoughts, and opinions expressed are the guest's own and do not necessarily represent the views, thoughts, and opinions of Command Q or Uncompany.